The bodies hung in silence, windless and still, beneath an alien sun. 12 women. Human. Civilians. Their names now encrypted into Earth's grief, their necks broken for teaching freedom to the wrong audience, non-humans who had begun listening. The Empire had made their message grotesquely clear. A public square on Nerexus 3 was stained with shadows and blood beneath the tall iron gallows, imperial banners flapping like rust-colored knives in the heat. Commander Elira Voss stared at the footage for the 42nd time. She didn't blink. Not once. Her sister, Kayla, was fourth from the left, head tilted to the side, one shoe missing, still wearing her red teaching scarf. The one Elira had given her for luck. No sound played in the cold, gray compartment aboard the Scourge of Winter. Just Kayla's image, and the subtle creak of bodies swinging in Empire-controlled gravity. Behind her, Lieutenant Darnick shifted, uncomfortable. "We could turn it off, Commander." No, Elira's voice was low, dry. "They wanted us to see this." She finally tapped the screen. The image froze. They expected silence, fear. Maybe a strongly worded plea to the Council. Instead, she stood, her short black hair brushing her collar, voice gaining heat. "They get me." A tense beat. Then she turned to Darnick. "How long to power the railcore?" 6 hours, give or take, he said. "Stealth systems are cold. If we light up the core, we light up every scanner in the sector." "Good," Elira said. "Let them look." The Scourge of Winter had been buried under Europa's ice for 16 years, disassembled and technically non-existent. A leftover from Earth's pre-annexation defense network. Now a ghost, welded together by bitter engineers and stashed away like a curse. Now it rose. Across the system, other ships like it blinked awake. Echo Vale, Black Moon, Wraith of Mars. Warships built in secret by those who knew Earth's surrender was never real, it was just paused. Elira stood on the command deck, watching frozen fuel lines grown back to life. The ship wasn't pretty. It was angular, aggressive, alive with systems outlawed by Imperial doctrine, synthetic reflex cores, unfiltered AI processing, antimatter buffers. Route encrypted messages to Echo Vale and Wraith. "Full activation order," Elira said. "Aye, Commander." Darnick's fingers danced across the console. "We're burning dark to the Archeon drift," she continued. "We'll regroup, plan, and hit them where they sleep. No half measures. This is a war of extinction." Darnick hesitated. "We're not ready for that scale of conflict." "We were never going to be ready," she said. "But they already hanged 12 of us. We're late." 3 hours later, Elira stood in the war room with Captain Reese Tanaka of the Echo Vale and former Navy Warden Shuri Ielvas, her cousin, exiled for striking an Imperial liaison across the face on live broadcast. The holographic table displayed the Nerexus system, alongside 12 others marked for surveillance, occupation, or cultural sanitization. "We're not going for occupation," Elira began, her tone surgical. "We're going to cut their grip at the wrist. Comms relays. Fleet yards. Propaganda hubs. We hit, we vanish. No speeches. No signals. No apologies." Shuri leaned forward, eyes burning. "You want to make them afraid of our silence." "Exactly." Reese crossed his arms. "And the Council? They won't act. The Empire's too useful to them. We're not appealing to the Council anymore. We're appealing to fear." A long pause. Then Shuri spoke. "What's the first target?" Elira turned to the holomap. A red icon flared above a crescent moon. Delpar Station, Empire Propaganda Hub and Relay Tower. "Delpar," she said. "They broadcasted the hangings from there. We start by burning the lie they used to make us small." Reese smirked. "Poetic." "No," Elira said. "It's personal." Later, alone in her quarters, Elira opened the only message she hadn't yet read. It was Kayla's last vidmail. Time-stamped 2 days before the execution. Her sister's face filled the screen, soft eyes, stubborn grin, the red scarf tied around her neck. "Hey, Eli. I know I'm pushing boundaries here. But they need to hear this stuff. You should see the kids, some of them glow when I talk about Earth. About choice. She laughed, a little breathlessly. Don't be mad. I know you're worried. But you always said, teach the truth, even if your hands shake. Well, mine do. But I'm not stopping. A pause. She looked down. If anything happens, don't come for me. Not just for me. Come for us. The screen went black. Elira sat there for several minutes. Then she stood and walked to the bridge. Darnick, she said. He looked up from his console. Yes, Commander? Change of schedule. We're jumping early. I want Delpar turned into a memory before that sun rises again. He didn't argue. As the bridge lights dimmed and the stealth drive spun to life, Elira gave the order that would restart the war no one had truly finished. Launch. The void near the Archeon drift was quiet, too quiet for a sector once littered with mining outposts and scout patrols. Now it was a graveyard, and Elira Voss intended to wake the dead. Aboard Scourge of Winter, the hum of systems in motion filled the cold air. Lights pulsed along black steel corridors, weapons bays pressurized, and reactor output climbed steadily. She watched it all from the command deck, stone-faced, jaw-tight. We're ready, Commander, Darnick said, glancing up from the tactical station. Elira didn't respond immediately. Her eyes were on the long-range scanners. A trio of icons flickered, other ships in the dark. No transponder codes, no lights, no signatures. Ghost fleet. Patch me through, she said. The comms array pulsed as it connected. This is Elira Voss. Operation Iron Veil is now active. Confirm status. A pause, then a crackle. Echo Veil online. Systems optimal. Awaiting orders, came Reese Tanaka's clipped voice. Black Moon reporting, said another, female, Captain Leia Home. Stealth intact. Railcore spun. We're ghosts. A third voice joined, rough and amused. Wraith is live. Scanners clear. Vengeance primed. Elira allowed herself the faintest smile. This is not a formation. It's not a fleet. It's an idea, she said. One they buried. One they feared. Our job is not to die gloriously. It's to make sure the Empire's maps start bleeding from the inside. Understood, Reese replied. Delphers still first? Affirmative. We'll breach orbit at 0300 local. Target relay spires, memory cores, and broadcast towers. Minimal civilian footprint. Silent storm then, Holmes said. Exactly. By nightfall on Delpar Station, the Empire's hub buzzed with self-assured monotony. Towers pulsed with white-blue light. Drones tracked cargo. The latest broadcast from Nerexus had just looped again. 12 women displayed like trophies. Inside the ops dome, a junior officer scanned the system logs. Unusual radiation patterns pulsed across the drift, faint and scattered. He frowned, flagged it, and submitted a report. The report would be ignored. Scourge of Winter dropped from slipspace just outside Delphar's orbit. No flare. No noise. The ship blinked into existence like a ghost inhaling. Radiation shields active, Darnick confirmed. Sensor profile holding. Elira nodded. Bring us close. The ship knifed silently toward the station. Behind them, Echo Veil and Black Moon mirrored the approach, silent shadows cutting through stars. In the weapons bay, railguns rotated. Coils glowed. Targeting AI whispered calculations with chilling precision. Firing solutions locked, Darnick said. On my mark. Elira watched the station on the screen, still unaware. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The first round struck the transmission tower, severing the spine of Delphar's communication array. It imploded in silence, atmosphere venting in a sparkling arc. Seconds later, the second railgun fired, this one targeting the broadcast core. Data archives, propaganda servers, voice banks, obliterated in a blink. The station panicked. Imperial alarms blared. Local defense batteries scrambled online, firing wildly at shadows. One of them managed to clip Wraith's hull, scorching armor but missing vital systems. Minimal resistance, Darnik said, almost surprised. Hold them in chaos, Elira ordered. Then pull back. No occupation. We are the message. A third strike decapitated the orbital command tower. It didn't explode, it crumpled, falling inward like a dying beast. By the time Imperial reinforcements arrived, the attackers were gone, vanished into drift space. Delpar floated in silence. Half-lit, hollow. All 12 major comms channels across the sector went dark in perfect sync. The Empire's voice had been ripped out. Far across the void, on the moonship Varys Prime, High Executor Varnak Threx stared at the reports with growing unease. Around him, a council of aides murmured, analyzing failures, tracing vectors. So, he said slowly, the primitives have grown teeth. Sir, one aide offered, this seems coordinated. Not isolated. Possibly. Earth-based. Varnak's lip curled. Earth has no sanctioned fleet. They surrendered that right. They also surrendered their women to us, the aide said quietly. Now it seems they've changed their mind. Varnak's eyes narrowed. Find them. Every ghost, every old warship. Find them and silence them. He turned to the hologram still playing, frozen mid-frame on Delphar's final broadcast before the strike. Elira Voss's face, glitched but visible, stared back. Not a message. Just a single look. Cold. Focused. Absolute. Varnak clenched his hands. No speeches, he muttered. They're not making demands. No, sir, the aide replied. They're making war. In deep space, the Ghost Fleet regrouped at an asteroid belt tucked between two dying stars. Elira stood outside the tactical room, gloves in hand, still armored from the Delpar strike. Rhys approached, pulling off his helmet. 2 towers. 3 relays. 1 command center. I'd call that a clean burn. She nodded. Not clean enough. They'll recover. We need chaos, not just scars. He leaned against the corridor wall. You thinking bigger? I'm thinking louder, Elira said. We cut their voice. Next, we make them choke on their own words. He raised a brow. Broadcast. Soon, she said. Not yet. First, we remind the galaxy who we are. A long silence passed between them. Rhys lowered his voice. Kayla would have been proud. Elira looked away. She's not the only name they took. In the Scourge's databanks, a list was being compiled. Every human executed, tortured, erased under the Empire's laws. Every name gathered. Every case verified. It grew by the hour. They weren't hunting vengeance blindly. They were building a war with precision, and it had only just begun. Elira Voss stood in the databank chamber, lit only by the flicker of names. The walls pulsed with slow, silent motion, line after line of confirmed executions, forced disappearances, erased records. The Empire thought it had scrubbed them from memory. But humans had always excelled at remembering pain. A voice interrupted the scrolling stream. We're up to 9,423 confirmed, said Darnik from the doorway. Still pulling archives from stolen Imperial nodes. Mostly women. Mostly civilians. Elira didn't turn. Any of them military? 18. The rest were teachers, healers, protesters, librarians. One was 13. She closed her eyes. They weren't just killing humans, she said. They were killing voices. Darnik waited. What do you want to do with the list? Her fingers hovered near the projection. Burn it into every sky, she said. Every broadcast tower we take. Every system they still control. No speeches. Just names. He gave a small nod. It'll echo. Good. She finally turned. They turned our dead into silence. Let's turn silence into thunder. In orbit over Shirian V, Imperial Governor Aro Chell sat on his balcony, watching the sunrise over a city built from imported stone and forced labor. The skyline gleamed with towers shaped like talons. His breakfast was interrupted by his aide, flushed and panting. Governor, there's been an intrusion. Substation 12. Comms hub. Aro frowned. Handle it. I'm not chasing shadows. Sir, the aide hesitated. It's not just interference. They broadcast something. Aro's hand froze mid-reach for his drink. What kind of something? Wordlessly, the aide handed over a data tablet. The screen flickered, then stabilized. No message. No statement. Just names. Thousands of them. No music, no flag. Only text, white on black. A line at the bottom read, "Remember who you silenced. Remember who is left." Aro's skin prickled. "Cut the feed," he barked. The aide shook his head. "We can't. They've looped it through the orbital dishes. Civilian networks. Holoscreens. They hijacked our entire planetary relay." "Shut it down manually, then." "We tried. All control cores were already physically destroyed. They were inside the station." The governor's hands trembled slightly. "How long has the list been running?" 17 minutes. He knew the damage was done. In the command bay of the Echo Vale, Captain Reese watched the same list scroll across Imperial territory. He leaned forward, voice steady. 33 systems have seen it already. 2 colonial governors just resigned. 1 took their own life. Alira's voice came through the shared channel, cold and focused. "Let them resign. Let them tremble. This is the first broadcast. More are coming." Holmes' voice crackled in. The names, it was elegant. Brutal, but elegant. "We didn't write it," Alira said. "They did. We just made them read it." The Empire's response was swift and furious. Within hours, the High Executor issued a region-wide blackout. Civilian transmissions were locked down. Holonet privileges suspended. The punishment fell hardest on non-humans, any species known to sympathize with humanity's cultural exports. Even breathing earthborn music became a crime. Children caught sketching Terran animals were flogged. In one district, books from Earth were burned in public squares. But the names kept returning. Carved into sky panels, spliced into maintenance drones, embedded in AI subroutines, even whispered through static during mandated prayer broadcasts. Wherever the Empire tried to suppress it, the list rewrote itself. Back aboard the Scourge, Alira reviewed their next target. It wasn't military. It was Calidor Hive, a cultural conversion hub. One of the Empire's more insidious creations, where non-human youth were taken, rewritten, and returned to their planets with names stripped and tongues reformed. A place where Earth's history had been erased, line by line. "You're sure you want this one?" Reese asked over encrypted feed. "There are kids in there." "I'm not after the children," Alira said. "I'm after the algorithms running their minds. I want the Hive offline. Permanently." Shuri's voice cut in, quiet and steel-edged. "My niece was taken to Calidor 6 years ago. They renamed her Subject Beta Citron. She was 11. That settled the question. The insertion was silent. Drones moved first, black spheres no bigger than fists, each carrying a virus payload. They slipped through maintenance vents, latched onto data ports, and cracked firewalls in seconds. Then came the strike team, 12 operatives in carbon suits, faceless and fast. Alira led them herself. The corridors inside Calidor were white and humming with false serenity. Recorded voices offered lullabies in Imperial dialect. Monitors displayed moral instruction loop. A room full of children repeated phrases in unison, none of them their own. Alira's team didn't fire a single shot. Instead, they uploaded a second list. New names. Children taken. Identities stolen. Earth roots purged. As the data began to broadcast, Alira found herself staring at a mirrored wall, her reflection warped by soft lighting. "Subject Beta Citron," she murmured. "Real name." Darnick's voice came in. "Mira Tan. Half Martian. Father died in the annexation. Mother disappeared." Alira pressed her palm to the wall. "You're not a subject, Mira. You're a human being." When the signal hit Empire space, something cracked. Civilians began whispering the names. Sympathizers smuggled hard drives with the list across station borders. A black market industry emerged overnight. Recordings of Earth voices, photos of hanged women, songs once banned now played in alleys. And through it all, the names kept coming. 9,423. Then 10,002. Then 11,100. The Empire tried to bury them all again. But Earth had built a fleet on the bones of memory. And now memory was the weapon. The last diplomatic line cracked at 0400 hours. An Imperial vessel, High Star Vane, hailed the Terran fleet with an ultimatum wrapped in false civility. Cease information warfare and surrender known operative. In exchange, we will allow a monitored human migration to designated holding sectors. There will be no further executions unless provoked. Reese stared at the comms terminal, expression blank. Did he just offer us cages in exchange for silence? Yes, Alira said, voice razor thin. And he believes that's generous. She leaned forward. Transmit our answer. The Scourge's AI pulsed once, then sent back a message. A looped, silent clip of a woman, barefoot, defiant and bound, just before the Empire's noose took her. No words. Just her stare. And then the screen went black. 2 hours later, orbital scanners caught movement over Calyx Prime, an Imperial fortress world and the next Terran target. Darnik tightened the strap on his vest and stepped into the drop chamber beside Alira. No dignified warnings today, he asked. We're past dignity, she replied. This isn't war. It's cleansing. The chamber sealed. 30 seconds to drop. You ever wonder what they'd do if we surrendered? Darnik muttered, gaze forward. They'd thank us while hanging the last girl in line. 10 seconds. He nodded. Then we don't stop. The floor vanished beneath them. They struck at night. Under twin moons, with winds screaming across the rock-burned plains of Calyx, the Terran squad hit 4 entry points simultaneously. The fortress housed interrogation labs, language rewriting centers, and a weapon forge run with captured human labor. Reese coordinated air support from above. Section C2 shows low resistance. Focus blast on eastern door. There's a kid signal coming from a sealed room. Alira and Shuri reached the door first. It was reinforced with ceramic steel layers, coded for high-clearance Imperials only. Shuri lifted a slim metal tube. Pulse lock. Alira nodded. Hit it. With a compressed burst of light, the lock shattered. Inside were 9 children, starved but alive. Most didn't speak. One, barely 8, signed the word home using old Terran hand symbols. Shuri crouched. We'll get you there. A siren howled. Enemy reinforcements inbound. Darnik's voice cut in. There's scrambling flyers. We've got 15 minutes before the upper levels flood with troops. Alira swept the room. Load the kids into evac sleds. Priority 1. Shuri's team moved fast. Alira turned to Reese. Set charges in the forge. If this place has ever made a weapon used on our kind, I want it turned to vapor. From orbit, Scourge launched precision-guided kinetic strikes on Calyx's satellite uplink. The result: total planetary blackout. The Empire's elite battalions scrambled in disarray, unable to coordinate, screaming over short-range comms that looped static. By the time they breached the inner compound, Alira's squad was gone, and the forge was fire and crater. On the Scourge, Alira stood before the viewport, watching Calyx burn. Status? She asked. Reese approached slowly. 17 hostiles neutralized. 0 human casualties. We pulled 38 survivors from 4 compounds. Good. She didn't smile. Not once. Behind her, Shuri sat on the floor, holding the smallest evacuee. The girl clung to her with both arms, eyes wide but dry. Do you want a name? Shuri asked gently. The girl looked up. Do I get to keep it this time? Shuri nodded, throat tight. This time it's yours forever. The Empire struck back with a massacre. A rebel-aligned colony on Teresal 4 was bombed from orbit without warning. 1.3 million dead. No survivors. No demands. Elira watched the footage in silence. Darnik slammed his fist against the wall. We saved 38 and they slaughtered over 1,000,000. She didn't respond immediately. Then, softly, good. He blinked. What? They thought they could win quietly. Control the narrative. Stay surgical. Now they've shown us their true face, finally. She turned to him, voice like frost on steel. We'll carve that face into history. Within 48 hours, the Terran fleet answered. They didn't target military. They targeted pride. Cultural monuments, symbolic capitals, statues raised to commemorate the Empire's civilizing victories. Each one reduced to dust, not by explosives, but by precision nanoblades that atomized only the Imperial components, leaving everything else intact. Messages were carved into the soil below. We remember who you hanged. This is for those you silenced. You will never define us again. The Empire began to unravel, not from defeat in battle, but from a war of meaning it couldn't understand. On the third day, Elira called a war council. Not just Terrans, Zorans, Kethri, even exiled Draxan officers joined via encrypted link. Humanity, she said, has no intention of ruling the stars. We don't want a throne. We don't need tribute. She paused. We want the murderers buried, the torturers unarmed, the record set right. One of the Kethri delegates hissed. And what do you demand from the Empire? Elira didn't blink. An apology from a corpse. Silence. Then Darnik stepped forward and spoke to them all. No mercy, he said. No forgiveness. Only memory and justice. The Kethri bowed. So be it. The communications relay on Shirian 9 hummed to life at 0500 hours. Elira was seated in the command chair, staring at the incoming message. The holographic feed was a simple one, a sterile imperial crest, an imposing voice behind it. This is High Executor Jalen Nash. We are prepared to negotiate terms of surrender. All hostile actions against the Empire must cease immediately. We will grant amnesty to those responsible for the information warfare. However, all demands for justice must be dropped. The words echoed hollowly in the war room. Darnik spoke first. They've finally realized we're not going to stop. Risa's voice was grim. What happens if we agree? Elira's gaze remained fixed on the cold, impersonal projection. They've never negotiated before. They're not offering peace. They're offering control. She stood, motioning to the team. Send them our reply. Without a word, Rhys typed the response. The Imperial crest shattered in a burst of light, followed by a simple message from Elira's fleet. We will never forgive. Within hours, the Empire's full response came through. An entire armada, hundreds of ships, descending upon Shirian 9. Their goal was clear: force humanity to kneel. The Terran fleet wasn't outnumbered, but the Empire's vessels were massive, heavily armed, and relentless. Elira felt the weight of the coming battle. Do we stand our ground? Darnik asked, arms crossed. Elira didn't hesitate. We've done enough running. She stepped forward. Prepare for full engagement. This ends now. The battle for Shirian 9 was chaos in its purest form. The sky above the planet rippled with flashes of gunfire, explosions painting the heavens with fiery trails. Ships moved like living creatures, some shattering under the relentless barrage, others gliding through the chaos, hitting their targets with cold precision. On board Scourge, Rhys steered their ship with grace. His hands gripped the controls, eyes darting between terminals. The Empire's bringing everything they have. They won't stop until we're wiped off the map. Elira was calm. They've underestimated us. This is about more than victory. This is about what they'll remember after we're gone. She locked eyes with Darnik, standing at her side. We're not going to win just because we've got better guns. We're going to win because we've made them bleed in the only way that matters. We've made them afraid. As Scourge engaged a fleet of Imperial dreadnoughts, Elira's thoughts flashed back to the countless names, the faces of the women and children who had been lost. The network of Terran resistance groups had always worked in the shadows, unified by grief, by rage, by an unbreakable bond to each other. Alira understood now that the key to victory wasn't in firepower. It was in the collective rage of every person who had lost someone to the Empire's cruelty. "Open comms," Alira commanded. Darnik immediately complied, setting up a wide-spectrum broadcast to every ship in the fleet. She addressed them all. "To all who fight for justice, remember what they took from us. This war isn't just about this planet or this moment. It's about every moment they thought they could erase. Every name they thought was unworthy of memory. We fight not because we want revenge, but because we refuse to let them rewrite our story." Her voice carried across the waves of the fleet, resonating with the anger and loss they all shared. "Let them hear us. Let them feel us. We are not a footnote. We are not forgotten." The battle waged on for hours, but the tide shifted. The Imperial fleet, despite its overwhelming power, was no match for the unity of the Terran forces. The Empire was built on fear, on silence. But now, Terrans were fighting with a weapon that transcended ships and weapons. They were fighting for their names. "Alira, incoming warhead!" Risa's voice cut through her thoughts. "Brace." The warning was instantaneous. A massive missile, its warhead capable of cracking the crust of planets, was aimed directly at Scourge. A few moments before impact, the ship's shields flared and sputtered under the tremendous energy. Alira's breath caught in her throat. "Activate countermeasures," she barked. Shuri's hands were a blur on the panel. "Doing it now." The ship lurched, and for a split second everything seemed to slow. The warhead veered off course just inches from its target, deflected by the ship's last-ditch defense. The Terran forces had gained the advantage, but they couldn't afford to let up. "Not yet," Alira muttered. "We need to break their command." On the surface of Shirian 9, the Terran ground forces were pushing forward with relentless efficiency. Every inch of ground taken was a personal victory, each outpost liberated marked by the blood of the soldiers who fought in the name of the fallen. Shuri's voice crackled through the calm, "We've got them on the run. They're pulling back." Alira's eyes narrowed. "Let them think they're winning." The final blow came with the collapse of the Imperial command structure. Through careful infiltration and sabotage, the Terran resistance had managed to infiltrate the heart of the Empire's military communication systems. With a single, well-placed strike, they severed the Empire's ability to coordinate. The Empire's ships, now leaderless and disarrayed, fell like autumn leaves. One by one, they broke off, retreating in every direction. Alira watched from the bridge as the holographic display showed the final Imperial fleet units scattering, unable to organize any further response. "We've done it," Rhys said quietly, his voice betraying awe. "We've broken them." Alira didn't smile. Her mind was still focused on the long road ahead. "This isn't over. We need to send a message." She gave the order. The final broadcast sent to the Empire's remaining forces was simple. A list. The names of those who died. Of those who never had a chance to fight back. Of those who were erased. "You cannot bury us. You cannot silence us." The message burned through the stars. The Terran fleet was victorious, not by the force of its weapons, but by the strength of its defiance. They had become a symbol, a living testament to everything the Empire had tried to destroy. No more apologies. No more words. Only names.